We are now live and back again for the 104.1 River West Radio with Dave Clark, Dave Geis, and myself, Doug Cornfield, for the Pulling Each Other Along show. It's been a very quick week. We're glad to be back, and we've got a very interesting show, and we're excited for our guests that we have. For those that are Facebook Live and YouTube Live, you can see that we have a special guest, Liv Stone, who has agreed to come on. And one of the reasons that I'm probably a little more excited about this show than normal, Mr. Geis and Mr. Clark. Liv was born with neither arm fully developed. And as you well know, I have a young son who's not so young anymore. He's 22 years old. I'll just pop a picture up of Gideon. That was Gideon, probably around 2 years old when he first started walking. Gideon was born with neither arm developed. And so when I found out about Liv and that she was going to be in our Pulling Each Other Along book, I was pretty excited about her story. And then we found out that she grew up very close to where I grew up, and chatting with her mom. And so because we don't want to talk about all my connections and everything, I want to bring in Liv and her mom, and we'll have a wonderful discussion. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing? And
good. How are you?
Liv, hey, Liv. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Pulling Each Other Along show, Dave Clark and Dave Geis and myself. So we are very excited to have you and to talk about some of your accomplishments. So where do we begin, Mr. Clark?
Well, I want to address Liv this way because I read the chapter that Liv, we should explain that Liv is part of the book that you and Todd Simon are writing. The Victor's Feet Don't Touch Sand is your chapter. And in it, you mentioned this is where my connection with you, where I can really relate. And you can explain this after I lead you in. But you mentioned that you were born this way, so you didn't know any different. And for you, the way you were born and the way you grew up was just normal. You're normal.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. I always say that I was fortunate to have had polio, if that's the right word, at 10 months of age. I had not learned how to walk yet. So when I had polio and I began walking, it was with the crutches and the leg braces. My norm.
Yeah.
So explain to the listeners and the viewers what that meant to you and how it's different than it would be if you came down to your limitations after you'd learned how to do something one way.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for me, like I've just always been like this. You know, I grew up in a really small town, everyone knew, because like everyone knows everyone. And then so people knew that, okay, this is Liv and this is just her arms and that's the way she is, It's more when I started to get older and more mature and, wanted to like fit in more is when I got, looked at different and I'm like, well, why is that like that? Well, and then I'm like, well, I guess like I am vastly different than everyone else. And so, and I do things and I like do things that look a lot different than everyone else. So, when I got older, I started to get more in tune with that of, wow, like I'm very much different than everyone else. I have to do things differently. I have to adapt to things differently. And I think honestly that has made me like have a stronger character and a more strong personality because, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to get it done. And it's just what I'm used to all the time. And so if anything comes my way that I can't do, I'll figure out how to do it and figure out and adapt around it. And I think that's really just what I've done all my life.
Let me ask you this. You said that that you look different, you accomplish things differently. Until I saw myself on film and video, I guess I didn't really, I visualized what a picture looked like And I thought, from my own perspective, when I threw a baseball, I looked exactly like the pitcher that I saw in the video, when in fact, just what you said, I did not. I did things differently.
Right.
Did you ever feel like when you were on a surfboard that you visualized a surfer with well, everybody's got limitations, but not the limitations that you or I deal with?
Right.
Did you ever visualize the surfer without those limitations and feel like your actions
So
were
like
the same?
definitely, like, so I watch a lot of surfing videos because I'm a like surfing's so mental. So I watch a ton of people surf on like my computer, and just able-bodied people. So I really fine tune like what they're doing. Like it's kind of like watching film back for football or for baseball or anything. You study them and you like, okay, I have to bend a little bit more. I have to do this. So like I'm watching these able-bodied people surf over and over like multiple times a day. So when I'm surfing and I feel myself do like a floater or like a cutback, which is like a maneuver in surfing, I think that you're right. Like I feel like it's like everyone else, And then my mom actually videotapes me almost every time I go out there, for me to watch it back and then critique myself and whatnot. And then I see myself on the wave and I'm like, I just look so different than anyone else I've ever seen surfing. And, it kind of then puts me back to the same, theory of, oh gosh, I'm like very different than everyone else. And then I start to think, I guess that's what people, see when I surf, and it's just, I've come to terms with it. It almost bothers me watching myself on film because I think I put this stigma in my imagination of what I look like. But then when I watch myself, it's so vastly different. And so I don't really like watching myself on film, but I've been forcing myself to like accept that, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I guess I never really even talked about that before. And that totally makes sense though.
You said something about it takes so much mentally. Now, from the person that's just looking at it, and of course, I know that this isn't the case, because so much in athletics competition, without a strong mind, typically you're not going to be at the top of your game. So, what does that look like for you when you're saying you have to be so strong mentally?
I think like in terms of competition, when I'm in that competition setting, it's like 20 minutes in the water. You have 20 minutes to do your best, and you just have to completely zone in on what you're doing. You cannot think about, any other stressors in your life. You have to focus and you have to visualize yourself winning. Like in my mind, when I won a gold medal, you just have to constantly think to yourself, oh my gosh, this wave is going to be good. I'm going to stand up fast, I'm going to turn fast. Like I have to just keep telling myself, in my head mentally, I'm going to do good. This is me, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is who I'm made to be, and I'm going to kill it basically. And so I just feel like I think surfing is so mental, competitively, and even like when it's not competitive, when I just go out and I surf for fun, I still have to just let everything go and just be present in the moment.
Michelle, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'm relating my own experiences here, but I can only imagine what it must be like to have your child with severe limitations. I know I've talked to my parents about, and I think the older we get, the more we appreciate what our parents went through to help us, to pull us along. But how tough was it for you to deal with the fact that Liv had severe limitations. And what did you do to help to pull her along the way?
Well, if I knew 18 years ago how she'd be, there'd be no worries. But obviously, 18 years ago when she was born, I was extremely worried. I mean, I had no idea she was going to be like that, like normal ultrasounds, everything. So when she came out, it was a huge surprise to all of us. And I remember in the hospital crying of like, is she going to be able to feed herself? Is she going to be able to take care of herself? Can she get dressed? Can she do, all these things, flood your mind as a parent. But I have two older, awesome boys. And so for us, we were in a small community, which was wonderful, and they supported us and loved on us. And her brothers gave her no grace. And we just kind of pulled her along to be like everybody else and just encouraged her, didn't give her grace, just let her figure things out. And for me personally, just having that love and supportive community and family was huge for me. And it was shocking for a little while. But, you think you're on one road and then all of a sudden you're on another road. But I wouldn't change it for the world because Liv's made me a better person today because of her and who she is. She's made me a better person.
So I have a question for you because obviously I can relate a little differently than some of these folks. We had a moment, and the one moment that sticks out for me, I've actually used this in a keynote that I've done. I think we mentioned it in the book as well. Gideon, because he's the fifth child of 7 in our family, and for the most part, never really treated him differently. But I had a moment when his older sister, Delian, was playing volleyball. And I'm thinking Gideon was about 5 years old. And now his arms are even more limited than yours, Liv. He's got like a partial arm that's got 3 fingers, and his right arm has got a little bit of something, but enough to help him catch like a big ball. And he still does amazing things even with what he's got for the small digit that he has on his right arm. But I'm thinking he was about 5 years old, and he looks up at me at this volleyball match, and he says, "Daddy, when are my arms going to grow so I can play volleyball like my sister?" Yeah, and you get it. And so, did you ever remember a moment like that?
Oh gosh. I mean, everything hasn't been all, I'm trying to think of a specific moment, but it's not like everything has been all rosy for Liv. Like she did have tears of, why do I have to be different than the other girls? I mean, those probably stand out to me is especially when she was younger, of just crying to me that why she was different and why did God make her different. And I kind of remember her saying, which was a good moment, of her saying, "Mom, if I prayed every night and God would give me arms, regular arms, I wouldn't want them because I wouldn't be doing what all I'm doing today and affecting people and being blessed with the opportunities." So a little bit different, what you shared, but I remember that moment for sure with her.
So one of the things that I caught when I was scrolling through Liv's Facebook pictures and stealing some of them, one of the things that stood out to me that, and I don't really know you, Liv. I've read and helped write your story, and with the help of your mom and you guys. But when I saw these 2 pictures, and for those that are on Facebook, they can see them. But it's Liv with a young girl who's in a wheelchair, a young lady, and a younger boy. I don't know how old he is. He's 8, maybe years old. He's also in a wheelchair. And you've got your Victor's flag wrapped around you. You have the United States flag wrapped around you.
Yeah.
And when I see pictures like that, that's, to me, that's the heart that I love seeing. And in essence, you're giving back and you don't even know it. You're helping pull them along because they see you succeeding, they're cheering for you, and potentially you're giving them the encouragement to reach for their goals and to go for it. How do you see that, Liv?
Oh, no, wait, we lost audio. Liv, we lost your audio. No.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Let me make sure it's not on my end. Audio.
Did you mute it, Liv?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. For me, when I see those pictures, I just see my friends. The girls, Kayla, Bolnick.
Bolnick, that's how you say it. Yeah.
And then, so her name's Kayla, and she's like one of my great friends that I met through Challenge Athletes Foundation, and she's an incredible athlete. She does biking, and I just see one of my really good friends, and it honestly makes me miss them because I don't see them all the time. And then the other boy, his name's Hunter, and he's a surfer, and honestly, I kind of feel like Hunter has pulled me along because he has spina bifida, and he's about 12 or 13, Mom.
He's 14.
He looks like a lot younger than what he is because he has spina bifida, and has so many health problems, and he's had, I think, like 35 surgeries like in his lifetime, and he actually just had a brain surgery like a couple months ago, and like he surfs with me, and I'm like, gosh, like that's just amazing. Like we go out and surf together, and he is just incredible out there. He always has such a positive attitude. He gets like really, really cold in the water because he doesn't have very good blood circulation, and there's a lot of factors that he has to overcome. So I see that, I see such a strong kid, and he's even younger than me, and I feel like I strive to be, even a better athlete and a better person because of him, because of, like all he's been through, and he's always so positive. So I think of those kids as like my friends, not just people in wheelchairs.
That's beautiful.
So, Dave, you got anything?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I would just, I was looking through your chapter as well, and just one thing really popped out to me when you stated, and I'm not going to get into the situation, what was going on, because I don't want to give anything away from the book, but how you stated that you needed to pull yourself along rather than let somebody else pull you along, basically, or help you. And I think really it just shows how your mom really pulled you along through that point. And at the same time, you're pulling your mom along too, at the same time, showing her that you were able to do whatever you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It just goes to show that you can really do anything you want. Yeah, you really can. And I think everybody has it within them to do that. It's just a matter of being pushed a little bit and then let you be on your own. When I was coaching high school football years ago, one of my fellow coaches had a saying, and it went, "Find a way or make one." And I think it goes with everybody, but especially people with physical limitations. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do, and you don't have to let you don't have to just rely on everybody else to do it for you. And once everybody realizes that and lets you do things on your own, then you're really going to shine. And,
yeah, definitely. And yeah, you can have like people pull you along, and whether they know it or not, but you also have to, conquer from within, and look deep inside yourself to keep yourself going and to push yourself even farther.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Liv, I have this picture of you And right now, it's also, for those interested in the Pulling Each Other Along book, it's the working title, and it will probably be the title, of Liv's chapter in Pulling Each Other Along. And it says, "The victor's feet don't touch sand." So why and how is that?
Yeah, I mean, so in surfing, when you're a competitive surfer, you dream of being chaired. That's what it's called. And that's what I was, that's what happened to me in that picture. I was on the shoulders of my best friend and my dad. That's like right after I won. And yeah, see, there's my mom. She's holding my hand. Like that's when I knew I had won a gold medal. I literally just came out of the water. They physically picked me up from the water, and like, the thing, you victors don't touch sand. Like I was not allowed to walk all the way up the beach, because I just won this gold medal. And you know I'm lifted up, like, and I was able to see everyone cheering for me, all my friends, family, supporters, even like younger kids that I didn't even know, but I was impacting. And so that was just obviously that was the best moment of my entire life, is being chaired. And yeah, no, that's just the saying of that victors don't touch sand. And I wasn't allowed to walk on the sand that day, and it was such a cool moment.
So we have a question coming from our Facebook fan, Mike Bowers. Thank you for joining us, Mike. Mike has asked the question, if there's time, so we still have time, how you got into surfing and what was your first surfing experience like?
Yeah, so my very first, so I grew up in a little town called Mannheim, and it's landlocked. The closest beach is 2 hours away. So I've never surfed, I hadn't surfed in my life until 3 years ago, but I've always been to the ocean. I've always had this love for the water. I was on the swim team. My mama used to always call me like a mermaid. I was always in the water. And so about 3 years ago, or is that even 4 years ago now? 3.5, 4 years ago, I surfed for the very first time with Bethany Hamilton. If you don't know her, she is a pro surfer that had gotten her arm bit off by a shark, and then she continued to surf, continued to inspire. And so she was one of my idols, and I got to surf with her for a weekend retreat called Beautifully Flawed. And yeah, that was incredible. I've always loved the ocean, and I just have never put a board, with the ocean. And I never really like made that connection. And so once I added the board and I was on the board, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this just came so naturally." Bethany pushed me into my first wave. I face planted, and then the second wave, I stood up. And so to be able to stand up on your second ever wave surfing is, it told me that, not everyone can do that. And it's something that came so naturally to me. And so I just fell in love with it. And then everything kind of went uphill from there.
Wow, we had somebody, let me look at the joints here. This was from Ernie Pound that made this comment. Great story. Keep up the good work. You probably don't know who we refer to when we say Ernie Pound. Thanks for listening in, Ernie.
Yeah, thanks, Ernie.
Dave, you want to tell her who Ernie is real quick?
Ernie was a first grade classmate of mine.
Oh,
Which time we have?
We're all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in my personal situation, I don't know about you, but you mentioned the first time you were made to feel different. I also had two brothers. My parents never treated me any different. My brothers didn't. But when we got to grade school, that was my first experience of being bullied and made to feel different. So in first grade, our teacher announced a walking field trip to the local fire hall. Like you, I grew up in a small town, Corning, New York, about 10,000 people. And so all the kids were ecstatic. We're going to get out of school for the day. But but I wasn't, because I knew I was going to have to walk 5 blocks, and I knew I was going to slow the class down, and I was going to bear the brunt of the bully's wrath. I was going to be picked on. So she announced it about 2 weeks prior to the event. So every day my anxiety levels grew and grew and grew until the day arrived. And I tried to play hooky. I got up that morning and I was like, Mom, I'm sick. Oh. And Mom said, you're not sick. Get your brace on. You're getting to school. So off to school I went. The teacher announced, all right, let's line up. We're getting ready to go. I did the first thing I could think of as defense. I waited until the line formed. I went to the very back because I thought, well, if they take off real fast and nobody looks back, I'll eventually catch up with them. That was my only defense. Just as we were about to leave, a little classmate of mine named Ernie Pound pulled up this little red radio flyer wagon and said, Dave, I brought this to school to pull you to the field trip, jump in. And that little act of kindness that Ernie showed several years ago has never been forgotten. And Doug even has taken as far as writing a children's book about the story. The kicker to that is that Ernie's family moved to California after first grade, and I never saw Ernie again until Doug found him 45 years later and invited him, unknown to me, to my first ever book signing. And this fella comes up and he puts a book under my nose, and I said, who would I sign that to? He said, you can sign that to Ernie Pound. Whew. Wow, the emotions flowed. So that's that story.
Really
that's that story.
And of course,
That's
that
really
is
awesome.
that is the lead story of the Pulling Each Other Along book. And so thanks for Ernie for joining us out there in the Facebook world. We greatly appreciate it. We have, we're on the 104.1 River West Radio, and we have Dave Clark, Dave Geis, Doug Cornfield with special guests Liv Stone and her mother, Michelle. And so we are very, very grateful to have them on the show today. Liv, you know, we have to do this better on our show. Let's see. What is your favorite donut?
So I'm actually vegan. So a vegan donut. I've actually never had a vegan donut, but you know, casting aside athlete diet, it would be like one of those chocolate ones, just covered in chocolate icing, bunch of sprinkles, and but not chocolate cake because that's too much chocolate. And then just with what's that filling stuff? Cream.
The white cream.
Yeah.
That's mine, man.
So you just have to get it vegan style.
That's it.
Yeah.
Can't everything be made vegan now these days?
Yeah, I think so. I think I could like try and maybe look up a recipe and I'll whip some up.
Let yourself go, Liv. Let yourself go. Have one.
Worth it.
No, don't be leading her astray. She can find a nice vegan donut. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, we are wrapping up the first segment of the Pulling Each Other Along show. This has been with Liv Stone and her mother, Michelle, and we are very grateful that she's been on. And we are going to just take a quick pause, and we'll be back in just a minute for all you Facebook lovers out there that are still hanging in there with us for a special surprise and some more questions. It's been a great day. Thank you, Milwaukee, and we'll see you next week. And we're back on the 104.1. It's not the 104.1 radio show. It's the Pulling Each Other Along radio show now on Facebook Live and YouTube. And I'm going to pull in a special guest that's actually not been on our radio show before. And this happens to be my son, Gideon.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Hi.
Hey, Dave.
mister.
So we've got, let me put Gideon on the hot seat over here for a minute.
Get him up there, man.
Get him up there. So we've got Gideon live from probably his dungeon basement. Talk to us, Gideon. Make sure we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
He
He
speaks.
speaks.
He does.
He can speak. So just, Gideon has been a big part of our organization for Disability Dream and Do. Years and years ago, believe it or not, we have some funny stories about this. He wanted to sell things. And so he'd either get one of his older siblings to take him around the neighborhood selling Dave Clark books. Those books, he even knocked on somebody's door one time. And,
Yeah, the door slammed in your face.
they go, I know, Dave, I'm not interested. They said, it was probably his brother. That's my guess, because his brother was in our neighborhood. So Gideon's been a big part of us, and I pulled up some. Here you go, Gideon. Won't embarrass you.
Oh, yeah, thank
you.
Oh,
Look at that.
And birthday this is, but that's his mother and I. What does that say? Two.
What was that noise, Dave?
get what happened, man?
Little candles.
What happened?
There you go. And so there was one question and we didn't get to you, Liv. So Gideon, you have anything to ask Liv right now? If you get this, you get the.
Not really, no. I mean,
Not really, no. You watched the show and you don't have any questions for Liv. Anything you can relate to?
Has anybody come up to you and been like, "Oh, my cousin twice removed has something similar to you," or something like that? Have you ever had somebody, be like that? Because that's happened to me a couple of times, but I've never met somebody with like the same thing as me.
Yeah, no, I have met like so many disabled people, and I do not know anyone that looks like me. So, I mean,
Except for Addie.
yeah, no, but she's not even exactly the same. There's literally
It's
no
similar.
one. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, when people say that to me, they're like, oh yeah, like my friend's daughter's like you. Well, okay, I would love to meet her if she's exactly like me, because I doubt it.
Yeah.
I do think like it's coming from a place of trying to connect, like, because it makes them maybe feel uncomfortable and they don't know what to say, so they like try and relate to you. I think that's more where it's coming from. But it is funny when people say that, for sure.
Yeah, it happens to me sometimes, so.
Yeah, definitely. I get just more asked like, oh, like, what happened, or like, were you in an accident? Or like, I'm like, no, I was just born like this. My common response is that God made me like this. And or like when it's little kids, and I'd be like, oh, just the way God made you have curly hair or glasses, he made me with 2 fingers on each hand.
Yep.
Or when you get asked, did your mom do drugs? Like that.
Oh my
like,
gosh, yeah.
You've gotten that before?
Yes.
That's terrible.
Oh,
I
wow.
got asked. I was like, no, this girl. So I was working at this pet store. It was my very first job, a year and a half ago. And I was just working at a cashier, and this woman is like, did your mom take that like birth control thing, like like way back, way back?
like morning sickness thing, yeah.
Yikes.
Well, the thalidomide was big.
Right.
Back in,
Right.
and there was a lot of.
And I'm like,
Well, we have a.
Yeah, but they found out it wasn't the case.
That wasn't.
Yeah. So. But
It definitely happened for sure.
Right.
But I was like, Liv's 18. That was like how many years ago? And it's kind of a personal question too.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Even if my mom was on drugs, which she wasn't, like, why would I tell you, a complete stranger? Like, it's just so bizarre, I feel.
Yeah.
So
people
we
are weird
have
sometimes.
another big question here from one of our faithful fans, Mike Bowers. He says, "Hey, Liv Stone, what's your next big dream?" That's a good question.
So, gosh, I have like a lot of dreams. I definitely would be like making the Paralympics, which for surfing, which would be in 2028. So that's kind of more of a long-term dream. Um, for right now, it would just be, share my story as much as I can. And I've been thinking of starting a nonprofit of some type that has to do with surfing. And I've been actually doing a lot of prone paddling, which, for those of you who don't know, it's on a really long kayak looking thing, and you lay down and you paddle long distance. And I actually did 5 miles the other day. I was pretty proud of myself. And so just some type of organization. I don't really know what it looks like, but I know I want to give back in some way sometime.
So tell me about your involvement with challenged athletes, because they're a part of our book as well, the Pulling Each Other Along book. What's your involvement with them, and how have they pulled you along and helped you?
Yeah, for sure. So I got connected with them about, 3 years ago after that Bethany Hamilton retreat. And they invited me out to do the Bro-Am in Encinitas, which is a surfing event. It was my very first surfing event. And so they really got me exposed to more surfing, and they got me a coach. And they really, provided all the surfing experiences that I needed to kickstart my career and plant that seed in me. And then I fell in love with surfing, and they have continuously given me grants throughout the years for equipment as well as travel to follow my dreams. And them as a whole, like, I love everyone in their team. They've always been so nice to me, and all of their events are really great. I do some speaking engagements there, and yeah, they're awesome, and I'm really close with them for sure. And they've really helped me achieve my goals.
So one thing that, you might not have gotten quote normal arms, whatever normal is, they're normal to you, but you got model looks. All right. And you are a model for who?
So I do some for Zappos Adaptive, which is, Zappos, the online, shoes and clothing brand. They have a line for adaptive wear and adaptive shoes, adaptive clothing. And I've done a couple different shoots with them, which has been super fun. I had done a UGG boot commercial, or no, that was more of a photo shoot, a little promo video with UGG boots, which was super rad. And I've done like a couple different shoots here and there, just with different adaptive companies as well as just regular surfing companies. And it's a way for me to, have that outlet of people to share my story with, as well as, because I really love surfing, but, a lot of times when you're in the professional sports life, you also that comes with speaking as well as modeling, as well as promoting brands, or trips, as anything. So I've really just dived into that recently.
Well, recently Netflix announced they were going to be giving $100 million toward more people with disabilities and limitations in film. Are you wanting to be an actress or an actor? I guess you're supposed to say an actor in today's
So
world.
I've done like a couple little commercials, and I actually got asked to be in this little short film over the summer, but there were some conflicting things that I had, obligations that I had, but it is something. I have no idea how to act, but it would be really, really exciting. Like, I think it would be an experience. It wouldn't be anything that would trump surfing.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
You were offered a modeling contract with the clown.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Both of you should have been. Look at those teeth.
You were hired as a railroad engineer commercial there.
They have lots of story, guys.
Oh,
Hey,
yes.
Liv, I read that you were going back to modeling, which Dave can relate to.
You never modeled?
Said Tommy Hilfiger. Did you do anything with Tommy?
So when I did, there was this Runway of Dreams about 2 years ago. It was a runway show for people with disabilities, and I got asked to do that, which was super rad. And that was 2 years ago before I moved out here. And I actually modeled Tommy's clothes. And there was a line of adaptive wear. It was these shoes that were easy to put on, as well as like this dress that was magnets instead of buttons. That was really easy for me to use. So yeah, I got the opportunity to work with Tommy, but not Tommy, but Tommy Hilfiger. Yeah.
The reason I asked is Tommy Hilfiger is from my hometown,
Oh wow, very
Corning,
cool.
New York. He originated there.
His sister still runs a Tommy Hilfiger outlet store right on our Market Street in Corning.
That's super rad. Yeah, they make really, really nice clothes, especially for the adaptive community.
Right. He's got is it a brother? I think it's a brother, is his story with autism. And so he's been,
Really, I didn't know.
been a
Yeah, I think
advocate.
that's right.
Yeah. Pretty certain that that's right. Well, it's great. You've been a part of Runway of Dreams. You've been part of Challenged Athletes, Zappos. You've got your own story coming. And I love this picture. I mean, it just shows so much. The victor's feet don't touch sand. And you didn't win just once, correct?
So 2 years ago, was my very first world champ competition, and I did take home a gold medal. That was for the like a team medal, like so there were 30 different countries there, and just like the Olympics, one country ends up on top, and that happened to be Team USA last year, and then this year Team USA got second. But when I compete like for individual medals, it's for my own division, and I compete against people, women with upper limb differences or deformities or anything. So I compete against people who stand, women, like there's different branches. And in that division, I won gold. That's when I got chaired. That's like that was my end goal. That's what I was striving for. So I have 2 gold medals and a silver medal. But yeah, so I'm hoping to go again to Worlds. I will be competing at Nationals in a couple months to see if I can hold my spot on Team USA. So yeah, I hope to rack up the medals.
Yep.
So one of the things about the guy over here to my left, he hated to lose.
No.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I never knew that.
You didn't know that, Dave Geis?
I didn't know that.
So, and I don't know if you can imagine, and you probably can imagine, a guy that can't walk without crutches and braces. And he lived in a very different time. He's got the stories of the crowds throwing food at him because they didn't want him on the field. And we're talking about large crowds yelling obscenities, telling him to get knocked out of that game, cheering against him. And so have you even lightly experienced any bullying, any, I don't know.
Any adverse fan or opponent that just didn't feel
or is he
like you belonged, or have you had any adverse reaction from fans or opponents?
Like in terms of when I won gold, is that what you're talking about?
No, just in life.
Any time, any
Yeah.
time during your career.
Yeah, so like when I was younger, a lot younger, through actually 10 years of my life, I played soccer. So that was really great. I never really, though, had any problems like with fans or with teammates. No, I never. I think so. When I was on my soccer team, I actually no, I was the captain of the team. So I was leading my team. So I was like a leader. I never really had like anything in the sports, arena of things. But like in terms of life, I've had like just growing up in high school and, having mean girls say mean things, spreading mean rumors, just, all like the normal high school experience, as well as an added layer of having a disability of, when people say mean things, I think it could be related to my limb difference or not, and I've never really had any moment of being severely bullied, definitely nitpicking and um what's that word? Like segregated, I guess.
Okay.
Not given equal opportunities. And that's what today I that's what life is about recently, about giving everyone equal opportunities. People are finally starting to realize that, giving disabled people more opportunities in the Netflix industry, like you said, in the modeling industry, giving people who look different or sound different or anything equal opportunities. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in a fantastic time period of very supportive people, but yet in life there's always going to be negative and not so great people.
Sure. Let me ask you a question. Do any of the surfers that you know that have limb differences that are similar to you, as we've talked about, there's nobody just like you, and
Yeah.
there probably never will be just anybody just like you. There could be similar.
Yeah.
But anybody that you know that gets a chance to compete, quote, able-bodied people. And is that something you've been able to do, to compete against an able-bodied surfer?
So I've only known adaptive surfing. I've never competed against non-disabled. I've never competed against able-bodied people. I don't know anyone who competes, like who I compete against, who goes
Faith,
along.
Faith does,
Oh,
remember?
does she? I
Does.
didn't know.
She does.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Well, Faith, my one friend from Maui, Mom, you said that she competes sometimes with able-bodied. I think
She does.
because Hawaii has a lot more competitions than here, obviously,
Mhm.
because it's Hawaii and there's like waves all the time. But yeah,
And
no,
she's been surfing since she's been a little girl.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I do like, I could see myself competing with, able bodies, because I think that could make me a better surfer. I'd get my butt kicked, but I would learn a lot.
Well, maybe you only get your butt kicked the first time.
I mean,
Mm.
I don't
You might
know.
surprise
They're
yourself.
like really good. It's kind of insane.
Gotcha. But do you aspire to get to that kind of type of level or another level?
I think like, I don't know, like it would be really great, but I don't know if that's something that I'm necessarily thinking about all the time and striving for, just because I'm very content with like where I'm going. Like I see myself going in not only a competitive direction, but a free surfing life of inspiration, instead of competing every week, if that makes sense. Like I don't see myself going to be on the world tour. And but I do see myself traveling and inspiring and surfing and whatnot. Yeah.
So I don't think we ever asked you the one question that we need to ask you. Who is that one person or thing that you feel like has been the most instrumental in pulling you along?
I think like in life, do you mean, or just like in surfing?
Probably in life. I think life is even more important than
Right.
surfing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it depends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say definitely my mom would be my number one person to pull me along. Obviously, she's my best friend. She's been there through everything. I grew up with two older brothers, so it's like just us girls in the house with my dad and two older brothers, loud and gross and obnoxious. So I just would always lean on her. And I remember a specific moment. I don't think it's in the book, but I do remember talking to the interviewee about it. I was really young and probably like, gosh, 5, and I was struggling putting on pants. And I would only put on jeans because they have belt loops that I can just like I don't have very good grip, so it's easy to like put my hand in something and pull or like push or anything. And so I would always wear jeans. And I'm like, but mom, I want to wear leggings or I want to wear sweatpants and I just want to be comfortable because jeans aren't in loungewear. So I was like this typical fashionista that wanted to wear sweatpants, and but my mom would have to help me every single time, and she was getting sick of it, quite honestly. And I had this pair of, I remember, pink leggings, and I'm like, Mom, I really want to wear this. I was throwing a temper tantrum, and she's like, okay, if you really want to wear this and you really want to go out with your friends, because we were going to like a play date, then you can get them on yourself. And she walked downstairs and she said, you cannot come downstairs until you have your pants up. And so I don't remember how long it was that I was in my room, but it felt like hours. It was probably like 10 minutes. But I remember I was crying and whatnot. And then I just came downstairs and I had my pants on and my mom didn't even say a word. And so I think, and then so that's kind of like a funny story, but from then on, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna literally lock myself in my room until I can do this. So I kind of had that mindset throughout life. Like surfing, for example, like paddling was really hard. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna conquer this and adapt and figure this out. We figured out how to put paddles on my hands, prosthetics to make me swim faster, or even like my makeup, as a girl, like putting on my makeup. I'm gonna figure out how to do it. It might take longer than everyone else, but ever since that one moment with my mom of making me pull my pink sweatpants up in my room has just, made me a strong woman throughout life. And then all these moments ever since of her encouraging me in the water, her, doing my hair a lot of the times and just encouraging me all the time and just supporting all my life decisions and being there for me. She's definitely who has pulled me along and made me a stronger woman and a more, just capable disabled person.
That's very well said. I think my son Gideon can relate to some of those moments.
Yeah.
What's that, kid?
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, what's a moment that you can relate there to Liv?
Well, the biggest moment I would say would be when I had to put on my own seatbelt. So I had a lot more siblings than you. I have 6 siblings, so typically you can get at least one of them to help you out with something.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you got to figure out things yourself. So I was kind of left in the car to, similar to your situation, to put on and off my seatbelt. And, I had to figure it out, Figured out putting on one way is a lot easier than putting on the other way because of my situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to use a pen to like push the button, just simple things like that, that you just figure out through trial and error. So
definitely. I mean, I think that's with everyone in life. You won't figure it out until you do it.
Oh, definitely.
Until you experience it.
So, Michelle, one of the things that I think is hard for parents in yours and my situation is those moments when we say no, especially to children with limitations. And, and that seatbelt illustration that Gideon gave was one of our moments when we said, because what was happening is he's got 2 younger brothers, and they were just automatically just buckle him in, put him out, put the buckle on. He would just sit in his car and just let them do it. And in essence, we were training him to not be able to pull himself along.
Yeah.
And then you get those moments where you got to say, no, you got to pull yourself along here.
Yeah.
And then you watch your child in a car for, I think it was at least an hour or so. He was trying to figure out how to get a seatbelt on, and it can be heart-wrenching. you know, as a
Yeah,
parent. So
definitely.
I'm thinking you can definitely at least empathize or
Oh yeah,
understand.
for sure. Like I totally understand that. And Liv's at, she's 18. We've been trying to make her as independent as possible, but as she's even getting older, just trying more and more and more with her independence of like, especially for her with surfing, like she wants to go and do her own thing, which that's what I want her to do, right? So for her, if you guys know anything about wetsuits, they're extremely hard to put on and off,
I can imagine.
and they're tight. And thankfully, one of her sponsors got her a wetsuit that all zips up in the front and just is giving her the independence. But I remember just for her just to try to figure that out is hard for me to stand there and watch her struggle to get it on and off. But it's something she has to do so she can be independent to go surfing whenever she wants. But you are right. It is hard as a parent to watch it, but we're actually hindering our kids the more we make them crutch onto us. But it's hard
No,
for sure.
definitely, definitely a hard balance there. You know, as far as that, especially with a child with limitations, special needs, disabilities, whatever we're supposed to call them these days. But have you started to figure out driving, or is that part of your plan?
Yeah, so I got my license
A little
2 years
over a year
ago.
ago. No, a little over
Oh,
a
not
year.
2 years. My mom says I'm not a good driver, but I think I am. I use a steering knob on my wheel. Uh, it's just, I don't know if you can picture like a tractor. They always have those knobs,
Uh huh.
just a spinny knob thing that I use. It really helps, just so I don't have to, grip onto the wheel. But that has really helped, and I love driving and traveling up and down the coast because there's the Pacific Coast Highway where you can just see the ocean when you drive. So that's definitely a great independence for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
she
bet.
has her own truck. She's got her Toyota Tacoma and she's
Yeah.
getting a camper shell put on the back. So she's
Wow.
excited.
Well, I know we can get into this, but I know you, from what I can tell, you really like the outdoors and just being outdoors. Period.
Yeah, I mean, like my mom said, I'm actually on Saturday getting a camper shell on my truck. And so we're gonna put like a bed in the back and everything so I can go do some trips. And I just love hiking and paddling and just anything that involves nature and getting out and being active. Not running though. I mean, no one likes to like run for fun. But
I know.
I have my oldest son. I'm actually flying to Oklahoma on Saturday or Sunday. My oldest son is a coach for Northern Arizona University, and they're in the National Cross Country Championships. And we found out we can actually go watch.
wow,
That's
that's really awesome.
So
Yeah, since like 10 years of playing soccer and running and training and a bunch of cardio has just like weakened my knees, and I don't enjoy running. I'd rather hike to a destination and see a beautiful view than like run like endlessly on a treadmill not going anywhere.
So Gideon can probably relate to that one a little bit. He is not like his older brother. He'd much rather walk and hike. And am I correct there, son?
Yeah, all the athletic genes kind of skipped me. Like, they all skipped me.
Oh, what do you mean? You threw a strike with your foot?
That's right, Gid.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, that's different.
So I'm at a meeting. I'm at a meeting in Binghamton, New York, and some guy finds out what I do with Disability Dream and do sports camps, and he comes up to me after the meeting. He goes, "I saw the most incredible thing. There was this kid with no arms, and he picked up a ball and he threw a first pitch and he threw a strike right down the middle." And he's talking, and that's Gideon's big accomplishments. He's been able to throw some strikes
Awesome.
with his foot and throwing a baseball.
That's so
It's not like
really
he practices it. I can't
Well,
say
I did practice it for a little bit before the first pitch, but it's just something, I open doors with my feet. I do a bunch of stuff with my feet, like just things that I do. Right. And so just and I would throw it up a little bit, and Dad was like, "Hey, do you think you could make it to the home base?" I was like, "Sure." So
I
And
love
we
that.
played
That's
wiffle
pretty
ball
much
and
it.
things like that. And Gideon actually has a pretty good swing with a wiffle ball bat and those kind of things. And so the
wiffle balls are a little
athletic
bit
team
harder.
didn't completely leave him.
Yeah,
But,
throwing's not really like my strong suit. Not really good at throwing at all.
Dave wasn't
Did you
either.
develop?
It's not.
None of us were.
No,
That's why you were on the team called what?
the clown.
The Clowns. There you go. Here's a picture of the old Indianapolis Clowns.
There we go.
Clowns, like, they kind of scare me, not gonna lie.
Who don't?
I'll tell you what, we did scare a lot
So
of people.
does this scare you?
None. That scares
No,
me.
that does not scare me. But like ever since watching like the Stephen King I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I never liked clowns. Clowns are creepy.
Thanks,
They're really
man.
scary.
Clowns are
Like,
creepy.
Yeah, we've heard that too.
For sure.
but
Well,
I do think it's funny because I've never heard of a sports team, the Clowns. That's really awesome.
it's actually a famous team, and the history behind this team, the Indianapolis Clowns. Originally, it was part of what was called the Negro Leagues, which just had their
Or segregation.
Before segregation, there was both the Major League Baseball and Negro League teams, and this was a remnant of one of those Negro League teams that eventually integrated white players onto the team.
Nice.
And Dave was a player on that team in the 70s and then bought the team in 1983. And it's the last of all the Negro League teams that have ever played when he made the last out. So it's very historic. If you Google Negro League, Indianapolis Clowns, Satchel Paige, there's some Hank Aaron is the big one. And, there's a lot of history a part of all of that. Here's another picture
Dave guys.
Dave playing. Dave is part of that history.
Dave Clark.
But anyway, is there any last moments, things you want to say? We've had her probably long enough.
Well, I want to shout out to our local,
Our fans.
our continuous fans: Al Tobin, Mike Bowers, Russell Beekdye, Barbara Zetti, and Ernie Pound. Don't know if we missed anybody else, but thanks for listening. And
Tom and Laura were on tonight.
Tom and Laura have got a wonderful story.
Angela Booth was on tonight. So
Bonnie Mann was.
Bonnie
Bonnie
Mann was on. I did see Bonnie Mann. Yeah.
Bonnie was on the show a few weeks ago. She was a 3-time world champion boxer. So thanks for joining us, Bonnie
Thanks
Mann.
for listening.
And
Wait,
thanks,
hold on,
guys.
hold on. I'm gonna get a special guest. Just hold on.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Now I'm worried.
Is it her dog?
I think it's the dog.
The dog's got to get some time. There we go.
Look at that.
Let me get it all the time. We can make it big. What's the dog's name?
Hello.
Hi, Pooch.
Her name is Charlotte.
Hey, Charlotte.
Charlotte.
I see a children's book in the making. Charlotte.
There you go.
She's very scared.
I know she looks a little scared.
Dave.
She was just laying on her bed, and my charger fell and made a lot of noise. She ran away. But yeah, I agree. I thought she could have some airtime. She deserves it.
Well, we're very grateful you guys joined us today. Dave, guys, you stayed a lot longer than you said you were.
Yeah, I know. I got to fly out of here pretty soon here.
And Kurt's still in the background, but he had left us, and I think he came back, and I didn't even know it. So I'll get him on here in a minute. Well, thank you, guys. I'm going to end the live show, and then we can say our goodbyes after that. But for everybody on Facebook, thank you, and YouTube, thank you, River West Radio, and thank you all.
Liv, Michelle, thanks for being on. Keep being an inspiration, Liv.